Anybody you talk with who is an advisor of yours is probably going to say to you that your ability to understand people is paramount to your success as a leader. So this next section of this process of you developing your leadership philosophy is what I like to call the person behind the employee. And I can tell you where that comes from. Again, I've been really fortunate to work with a wide array of leaders from a wide array of organizations in the corporate sector, government, religious, nonprofit, and education. And one of the things that starts to happen to people, especially as they climb the ladder of success, as it were, is that you start to sometimes have to deal more with numbers. You have to deal more with strategies. You have to deal with big, complex problems, and not so much the eyeball-to-eyeball interaction with a large number of people. What can sometimes happen is there almost becomes a sort of a detachment. A detachment meaning that as a leader, you have to be very, very careful that when you look at the head count, which is a popular term we all use, behind every head count, there's a human being. And I've been known to say that human being is a term we don't really even use anymore. I know as a kid, I used to always hear that term. I'm a big sports fan, and now they're referring to the players as assets, as if it was a Jason Bourne movie or something like that. But conceptually, what we're going to talk about here is, as a part of your philosophy, what I want to offer to you, some of this might be pretty obvious to you, but I want to offer to you several things I think you ought to get to know about the people who work on your team, the people who work with you. And there's a pretty good list, but I want to take some time and not just talk about the what, but I also want to talk about the why. The number one thing I want to share with you is this notion of personal background. That's pretty broad, but the personal background. Once again, this notion of being a leader is about connecting with people. It's about building and leveraging relationships. So I want you, as you begin to interact with folks, even in our PC, politically correct world, I want you to begin to learn how to take time in a very informal way to just learn the background of other people. Because once again, the more you understand about their background, their perspective, the better you're going to be able to work with them. Secondly, another thing I want you to learn, if you can, is learn something about their previous manager. Why? In learning about their previous manager, you may get an idea about why they have some of the habits they have, why they have some of the tendencies they have. In essence, the last person who was their manager or supervisor or boss might have been okay with them showing up to work a little late. Might have been okay with them raising their voice in a staff meeting. The point is, if you get some insight around who they worked for before working for you, I think you might be more effective in seeing how you might better interact with that person. Here's the third thing. The third thing is what I like to call a performance status. What is that all about? All that means is, I think it is very important that you get an idea of how this person views excellent performance, just in general, right? If you're looking at a colleague in your organization, or you're looking at a business article, or if you're reading a blog, it doesn't matter. Try to get the insight from that person about what does excellence look like to them. Because again, the quicker you can understand how they think and how they see the world, the quicker you know how to interact with them and how to influence some of their decision making. The next concept is what I like to call, how well do you know their personal and professional goals? Here's something I know to be true. You care more about your goals than my goals. I know, and I am not hurt by that. It is okay, I will get over it, but that's the reality. Each one of us, we are first and foremost concerned with our own personal and professional goals. Well, if I get an idea that you want to follow the University of Texas football team and your Winnebago all over the country, if I learn that you want to be able to save up enough money to take your family on a Disney cruise, if I learn that your goal is to be ultimately a vice president over a division of the organization, the better I understand where you want to go, the better I can connect that to the things you're responsible for in your day-to-day work. Because let's face it, people tend to work for what matters to them more so than what matters to you or what matters to me. So you will be significantly helped in leading people if you, again, understand what they're trying to achieve, where they want to go. Now, these next two are two of my favorite, and I could probably spend an hour talking about each one of them. And they are, I think, if you want to be effective as a leader, if you want to build a powerful and effective leadership philosophy, you need to understand what motivates people to do their best and how people like to be rewarded for a job well done. And listen closely. The key word in both of those cases is the word ask. A-S-K. What? Yeah. I want you to ask the people on your team, what is it that motivates them to do their best? And then secondly, I want you to ask them how they develop that motivation. I was working with a group of store managers in the Best Buy chain. You know, Best Buy is the phenomenal store that provides all sorts of electronics and consumer goods all over the country. And I was working with this group of managers, and I made this point that I think is important, that you learn what motivates people. And I had one of the people in the session, and he sort of snickered a little bit, sort of, oh, yeah, right. So I just went in on him. I just did. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, what's your name? I think his name was Brian. I said, Brian, how long have you been working with the company? I think he said something like 9 years. I said, well, Brian, let me ask you a question. What motivates you to do your best every day at Best Buy? He goes, well, he said, I don't know. I said, so Brian, are you saying no one's ever asked that question? He said, well, not really. I said, so you've been working here 9 years. I said, how long have you been working, period? He said, probably 14. You've been working 14 years, and no one has ever asked you the question, what is it that motivates you to do your best? He said, well, no, not really. I said, well, if you were going to answer it, how would you answer it? He said, well, I would probably say having the respect of the people I work for. I said, okay, that's a pretty strong answer. Remember what I said. Don't ask them just what it is that motivates you. Ask the question, how did you develop that? So I simply said, so where'd that come from? How did you develop that? He said, well, I guess it comes from playing sports. I said, you played sports? He said, yes, sir. I said, what sports did you play? He said, well, I played a little bit of everything. I played basketball, football, baseball. I said, Brian, what was your number one sport? He said, baseball. I said, why? I said, were you a second baseman? He goes, yeah. How'd you know that? I said, well, I don't know. You just sort of look like a second baseman. But I said, so in playing baseball, how did you make that connection? He said, well, my dad was my coach for most of my life as a kid. I said, oh, okay. So your dad was your baseball coach? He said, yeah. I said, so let me ask you a question. So are you saying to me that really that motivation for getting the respect from the people you work for really came from you wanting to get the respect from your dad? He said, well, yeah, now that you mention it. I said, so Brian, let me ask you this. And then I turned to Brian's district manager, Pat. I said, Pat, let's say Brian hits his sales goal this year. I said, you might say to him, hey, Brian, if you hit your sales goal, I'm going to get you a trip on the company jet, and we're going to go to the headquarters in Minneapolis. I said, that might be pretty nice, Brian, wouldn't you say? He goes, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I've never been on a corporate jet. I said, well, Brian, let me ask you this question. I said, is your father still alive? He said, yes, sir, he's still alive. I said, you still got a good relationship with him? He said, yeah, sure. I said, so what if Pat said, hey, Brian, you hit your sales goal this year. I'm going to send a letter to your dad talking about how awesome you are as an employee. Brian teared up in the workshop. Being a leader, listen, is less about you, and it's all about the people you're leading. And finding out what motivates people to be great, why they have that motivation is very powerful. And then the other one is this notion of finding out how people want to be rewarded when they do well. It's a simple thing. You ask them. Now, I know you are probably thinking, Derek, most organizations have tight budgets. Most organizations don't have a lot of money to give away things. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. What I have learned in 30 years is that more often than not, people aren't always looking for monetary rewards. Secondly, even if they are, they're not looking for things that are highly expensive. But the key is people want different things as a sign of appreciation. In my early career, I thought everybody was motivated by money. They aren't. I thought everybody was motivated by upward mobility. No. I thought everybody was motivated by more responsibility. Not the case. What I found is you as a leader do yourself and your team a major league favor by literally asking each person. This is exactly how it happened. It's back with my group at Best Buy. I shared this concept. About 3 months later, one of the people in the workshop, his name was AJ. AJ sent me a note. He said, DY, I really appreciated everything you showed us in the workshop. He said, I actually did what you said. I went out and asked all my people what they want for a reward if they do a great job and they hit their sales goal for the year. And he said, one of my guys told me that if he hits his sales goal, he wants, as a reward, a taco bar at work. At that point, I picked up the phone and I called AJ. I said, AJ, you've got to be kidding me. He said, DY, I promise you. I asked this guy, if you break your sales goal this year, what do you want? He goes, man, I've always wanted a taco bar at work. And he said, are you serious? I'm serious. A taco bar, a taco bar, a taco bar. I put it in my calendar to call AJ in January or February at the end of their fiscal year. Sure enough, February, I reached out to AJ. AJ, it's DY. Hey, man, what's going on? Hey, how you doing? I said, hey, how'd it go with Taco Man? He goes, DY, the guy blasted his sales goal. He blasted it. I said, so did you do the taco bar? He said, I didn't. I said, you didn't? You didn't hold up your end of the bargain? He said, no. He said, one of the other employees heard about it and the employees did the taco bar. A taco bar for somebody slamming their sales goal? More often than not, you'd be amazed how asking people how they want to be recognized is probably a lot less expensive, but more importantly, is 10,000 times more meaningful to them. Two other thoughts I want to share, and then we're going to give you a chance to kind of think about this. This one is, you have got to understand how your people view how they are doing against your standards. I'm going to say that again. One of the things that I've seen that really helps leaders is when they know how their people view their own performance against the standards the leader sets. Here's what I mean by that. Let's say you have an employee on your team, and if you're like most organizations, you have a 5-point rating scale. That's the way most organizations operate. And let's say 5, again, is the most phenomenal employee. 1 is an employee who we might be promoting to customer, if you know what I'm saying, right? So 5 is awesome, 1 is horrible. Let's say that this team member views his performance that he's a 4. I mean, he's pretty awesome in his mind. But let's say you think this person is a 2 and it's a miracle they still have a job. Hear me out. Your problem is not the fact that the employee is a 2. The problem is that you have a 2-point gap in how you are both perceiving his performance. Leaders who want to effectively influence people have to know how people view their own performance, and then they have to work to ensure that that employee sees their performance at the same level you see it, because you're the leader. The last point I want to share here, and I want you to do a little work on this, is as you get to know the people on your team, as you get to know folks you may work 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours a day with, 5, sometimes 6 days a week, you're going to start to know how they respond to constructive feedback. One of my favorite sessions we do, and it'll be a part of the Cascade Leadership Series, is Making the Bad Apples Good. Probably my favorite session that we do. And in that session, we talk about the way to get people to change their behavior many times is to help them see their weaknesses from your point of view, but not by confronting them, but by having a conversation with them. And you have that conversation based on how you know they're going to respond to the constructive feedback. And you notice I didn't say constructive criticism, because for me that's an oxymoron, right? They don't call them film constructive critics, they call them film critics. But constructive feedback basically means I'm going to say something to you that might hurt. You might not agree with. You actually might even be blind to it, but I'm going to say something to you because I care about you as a person, I care about your success as a professional, and I care about your performance and how it affects our organization. Well, again, for me, when we talk about your philosophy, I believe you've got to build your philosophy with these concepts of knowing their background, learning a little bit about where they worked and how they worked before, definitely knowing about motivators and rewards. So we're going to continue this list, but I want to give you some time now to work on this, to begin to think about the people you work with now and what some of their answers might be to some of these very questions.